Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay, welcome so much. In this case, guys, we will be presenting you our conclusions and evidences of the lesson plan that we made. So in here you have, of course, Julian and me. We will be presenting you this incredible lesson plan that we made. So in here we have the table of contents. We have Know Your City, speaking activity, maps, presentation, and conclusion. These are the topics that we will be talking about today. So first, the evidences. During this phase, we're going to show you the product of our learning during the teaching process. And we have first the strengths and weaknesses in the materials. So some of these strengths were like the students could foster the daily routine activities with the class topic. The first topic was about transportation, and the second one of course applying for the job. The accessibility of the content helped the students to have a better understanding of the vocabulary. We made interactive activities between questions that maintain students' interest. In this case, they were more than engaged, trying to, of course, answer those questions and to be more involved during this presentation of their maps and, of course, of their application for their job. The use of a different online platform made the students feel engaged because, of course, that's what we wanted. The weakness is that there is no variety of more platforms presented tasks. So for the first task, we asked them to make a map from their house to their workplace, but it wasn't no possible to have a lot of variety of platforms for that situation. And of course, not all of these students maintain the same level of interest in the class. One of them was not so into the topic, but we made as we could. And it was difficult to address and supply most of our students' in needs due to the variety of levels. Not all the students completed tasks on time. Those were the strengths and weaknesses for the materials.
So thank you, Paula. So in this case, we have strengths and weaknesses in the lesson plan. So regarding what Paula said before, we have here so different strengths and weaknesses regarding the lesson plan. So first of all, we have here three vital weaknesses and strengths. So first of all, a strength we have here that students had positive responses to the activity. It means students were fully aware of every activity and will as well they were full encouraged to develop each activity. Secondly, the vocabulary. Vocabulary was learned taking into account the four skills. So in this case, we try to apply listening, speaking, writing, and reading as well. And the last part was activities help students to develop relationships between their daily lives with English. So we have here a huge strength that it was use English as an excuse to apply here vocabulary and as well grammar. But in this case, we just focus on vocabulary as a better point of view and a better point. Secondly, we have here weaknesses. So, and the first weaknesses that we present here, it was the time taken to prepare presentations can be shortened. So in this case, we noticed that prepare this lesson plan, it was a matter of time, means it's time consuming and we should destinate more time. So secondly, there should be a better adaptation to speaking rubric. So we struggle finding the proper rubric. So in this case, we try to adaptate to Cambridge speaking rubric in trying to use it into the single classroom. The third weakness is that we present here it was creating and looking for material was a huge challenge because not all materials are appropriate for their level. So in this case, due to the difficulty of the level and also taking into account a student's level, it was difficult to adaptate material, for example, for B2, even B1 level, to students who have, for example, A2 and most part of B1. So, Paula, you can continue.
Okay, so first we have Know Your City. This is the first activity that we applied with them. Transferring a map and routes. So first, as I told you previously, we made an activity using this transmitting map in which they were supposed to locate themselves during this map, and of course to tell us some information about it. So this is the general transmitting map that we used. So here are some evidences of the questions that we made to them. So the first, second, and third and fourth question, of course, those were completely closed questions for them to answer. And here we have an open question for them. So here we have all the students that we had for that day, and of course they made of the answers for that question. Secondly, we have the speaking activity for this, that it was creating a map for them from this workplace, I'm sorry, from their home to their workplace. So we have an speaking assessment rubric. We try to, at least as Julian told you previously, to adapt this rubric to the activity that I created. So speaking assessment is based on the students' performance across all the parts of the presentation and achieving and applying relevant and concise information. So here's this assessment skills criteria that we used.
Okay, thank you, Paula. So regarding what Paula said before, we have here the speaking activity. So in this case, we have maps. You can continue, please. Thank you. So in this case, what is this activity about? So in this case, we have a student number one. Uh, Her name is Stefania. So the purpose of this activity is to design initial point and a final point. So in this case, Stefania remarked the initial point in the last point and explain, in this case, the idea is to explain what is the route that she usually use or she usually take, and also regarding the transport that she used, for example, public transport, bus, bicycle, walking, everything. And the other is try to explain it by a natural way because, well, it's a current line. Could you please pass the order? Thank you. We have here as well another student. Her name is Liliana. And could you please pass the order? Thank you, Paula. And as well, we have here the third student that is Nelson. So the idea of this activity, as I said before, is to explain the initial and final point. The initial point is the house, and the final point is the workplace. Okay, so in a brief details, they had to speak and explain with every detail what happened here, what is the most common route the taker use, um, and if there any possibility to explain an alternative route and as well a way to go to the workplace. Thank you. So in this case, we have here the second lesson plan, that is the curriculum vitae. So in this case, we have curriculum vitae student sample response. So could you please pull up? Thank you. So in this case, regarding our lesson plan about curriculum vitae, we have here a sample paper. What is this sample paper about? This sample paper contains some details or some info about curriculum vitae structure. So what happened here? In this case, we took one of our student sample paper that is Martelliniana, and we tried here to adaptate or even implement into the classroom in order to know the main components. It means this is the sample, this is not the final. So what is the idea of this activity? The idea of this activity is to explore and even to look for more info in order to fulfill every every gap, every detail that I have here into account, and as well try to use their professional knowledge in order to have a better understanding and how to implement this in a workplace, even if they have more opportunities to look for a new job. Could you please post the reply? So we have here the strengths and weaknesses of this lesson plan and even the activity. So first of all, we have here the three strengths. That is, the first is students were self-encouraged due to the level of the task. It means The three students look this activity as a huge challenge and a way to improve their professional lives. The second is students showed a high interest level during the task phase. And as well, the lesson plan was relevant because it supplied actually important terms for their professional and personal development. What happened here? They see here a vital reason to use curriculum vitae because they every day use curriculum vitae, but they don't know the proper structure, and in this case in English the proper vocabulary and as well the information that a curriculum vitae should have. And let me check here. And the other is the weaknesses. We decide to put two weaknesses. The first weaknesses was due to the difficulty of the task. Students tend to have problems with writing. What happened here? Students were um, were self-aware about the work that they should develop here, but the main problem is because they don't handle with writing. It means they just speak merely, but they don't know how to write properly in some cases. No, and the last is regarding the previous weaknesses. Students struggle finding the proper word for their professional description. So in this case, they struggle finding vocabulary and as well grammar structures due to the difficulty of this. Why? Because this is a high level task difficulty. So in some cases, they tend to look for more professional words in order to describe what happened here. So, Paula, you can continue.
Okay, so here we have the general conclusion for this lesson plan that we made and that we applied, of course. So here we have that during the application of the class, since we applied it, two of our students showed us a high interest degree, while one of them decreased a high level of participation during the flow of the class. Of course, was not as we expected, but at least we think that we tried our best to at least make him feel motivated during classes. And of course, we try to associate their topics with their daily routines. In this case, we associated with applying for a job, and of course, to take in this case Transmilenio, which is the one of the options that we have for transportation in Bogota. And we enhance their vocabulary along their speech level. Of course, students presented some doubts which could be solvable in further lessons. And of course, if they had any other suggestion and interest in one of their topics to have a further understanding of it, we will be more than pleased to assist them. Right now, it hasn't happened, but of course, if it's possible, then we will do it.